And Crystal, you can stay as long as you want. I don't know. I don't want to lock you in. So, if you got to go, it's all good. Just let me know. You folks on Clubhouse are not going to be able to. I mean, you guys can hear everything that everybody else is saying. So if somebody comes up on TikTok and one of these other platforms and they're talking, it's going to look like it's coming from me, but it's coming from other people in the other platforms. I just got it running through my mixer. With that being said, we are all right. We are live, folks. My name is Otis James. I'm a full-time real estate investor out of the San Francisco Bay Area. My background is exclusively in real estate and entrepreneurship. I've been licensed as a real estate professional for over 2 decades. Oh man, what's it going on? 23 years, something like that. I'm a long-term hold investor. I am okay. I'm a long-term hold investor. I invest all over the country. I'm the founder of 4 Data Points Academy. So we are the only real estate investing training platform that does not have an end date. So when people come on with us, we are going to stay with them until they determine that they no longer need us. Now, we're talking about multifamily commercial today. I have a background in the multifamily commercial industry. Yeah, actually, Mimi, I'm actually on Clubhouse right now. So if you go on Clubhouse, you'll see there. I got a room open on there. It's not planned. It's just a pop up, but yeah, it's on there. We're not scheduling on Clubhouse. We'll probably go back to scheduling on Clubhouse, but right now we are just opening up Clubhouse, kind of complementary to everything else we're doing. So, folks, I'm from the multifamily commercial industry. That was my corporate job. So it was my job to oversee these developments and make sure that they were profitable. When I exited that industry, I was overseeing just over $650 million in multifamily commercial assets. And I've worked every aspect of the multifamily commercial industry, all the way from entry level to the corporate level. So that means I was a leasing agent. I was an assistant community manager. I was a community manager. I was a senior community manager. I skipped the district manager and then went right up to regional manager. So that with the investing has given me a slight advantage. Most investors that invest in multifamily commercial are acquisition investors. They don't have a lot of experience in operations. So the experience in operations coupled with me as a real estate investor, it just allows me to offer more value to people that are looking to learn how to invest in real estate. Now, 4 Data Points Academy, 4datapoints.com. That's number 4 DATAPOINTS. Happy Friday, Keisha. For DATAPOINTS.com. Those are for folks that want to be real estate investors. I encourage people to go look at our website. We're very transparent in everything that we do. We put most of the things that we teach actually on the site. You can look at the brochure and know exactly what you're getting. There's a lot that we do for our real estate family that we don't put on our site and that we don't really publicize to the general public because it's kind of some one-off stuff. For example, if some of our real estate family has a unique situation, we don't always know what it's going to take to help them navigate through that. So whatever it takes, we've got to be prepared for. So yes, we absolutely do everything and more. You guys that have been following me for a while know how I feel about the real estate investing education industry. I don't like it. I don't like the way it's done. I think it's misleading. I think there's a lot of incompetence. I think there's a lot of let me swipe your credit card and then see what we can do after the fact type of stuff out there. There's a lot of people that are putting a lot of money into marketing and making you believe that, hey, if you start today, tomorrow you can own a 100-unit apartment building and all of those things. So we operate in transparency, integrity, and we make sure that people know exactly what their real estate investing journey is going to look like. It is not a cheat code. It's not a quick get rich anything. And we stay with people through the ups, through the downs, and help them navigate through it, whatever it is. I'm a long-term hold investor. I've consulted on multiple development projects, not just in the States, but in other countries as well. I've been in the office of some pretty powerful political officials in some of these countries. I've been introduced to, the Minister of Interior, governors, generals from some of these other countries, and believe it or not, it was my students that actually put me in a position to go there. So I was asked to go and consult on these projects from some of my students. And a lot of my students are smarter than me in doing, I'm a real estate guy, but a lot of my students are some pretty influential people. So, Four Data Points Academy has a good name. It will continue to have a good name. I don't think we'll be buying any yachts anytime soon because we add a lot of value and we allocate time and resources to people for as long as they need it. So it's not a let's see how many people we can run through this program. My philosophy is when you're teaching somebody how to invest in real estate, you got to teach them how to protect themselves first. And how do you protect yourselves? I know that when I'm speaking in a lot of different places, and I can break down some of these real estate investing strategies to where they sound really simple. And I got to be careful not to give people false confidence because I don't want them to go out and execute based off something that they heard when they don't have a background in real estate investing and they don't know how to adequately protect themselves. So I came up with the guide, the Four Data Points guide, and I give that guide away for free to people that are interested in getting into real estate investing. And it's really helped me because even though critics said that you're giving these strategies out for free, people are going to start executing these strategies, and then they're not going to need you. The critics that say that aren't seasoned real estate investors, and they don't necessarily really understand the value in teaching people how to do it first or giving people some insight in how to do it first. When people call me, they already know what it is. They're not, I don't have to try to, we don't have salespeople answering the phones, right? There's only a few of us that are going to take the call. And people already have made the decision, right? So we don't have to do that. I'm not trying to convince anybody how much they need the Four Data Points Academy. They know on their own. And I can appreciate that. And that's probably why we've got so many good people in our real estate investing training platform because of that. Now, that being said, today I want to talk about multifamily commercial investing. I'm not married to one particular type of investing. I'm not married to one particular type of strategy. I don't care which strategy you use. We're not selling one particular strategy. So we can tell you the dark side of everything we teach, right? Multifamily commercial investing has a dark side. Residential investing has a dark side. Home flipping has a dark side. Lending on these projects has a dark side. So it's my job to teach everything, and then you can determine which is the best way forward for you. Now, one of the major distinctions between multifamily commercial investing and residential investing is how these assets are valued. And because they are valued differently, there's certain advantages. So, for example, in 1 to 4 unit, and by the way, you guys on if you guys are on Clubhouse, you feel free to come up on stage and ask questions. You can just come off mute and ask questions. TikTok, we've got some empty. If you guys want to come up on stage so you can ask some questions, we can. It's fine. Just come up and we'll go ahead and get you squared away. Now, residential investing, there's limitations. And one of the main limitations as a real estate investor is the ability to add value to the asset. For example, if I buy a house, even if it's a fixer upper, let's say I buy it for 150,000 in a neighborhood where houses are selling for 300,000. And let's say it needs, 80,000 worth of work. All right? So now I'm in at 230,000. The most value I can add in that case is what similar properties are selling for. So 1 to 4 units are valued based on what similar properties are selling for. So it's market comparison approach. So I'm limited in how much I can buy it for and invest and put into it. All right. Come on up, Patty. So I'm limited in how much I can buy it for and invest because my ceiling is 300,000. And what we talked about yesterday was, Patty, let me know if you have a question. I just, I'm used to talking 7 hours straight without a pause.
No,
So,
well, I appreciate it. I'm gaining a lot of knowledge between today and yesterday. So I have some questions, but I'd like to hear you out first, and then I can maybe ask afterwards.
amen. So I'm limited in what I can do, how much value I can add, and because I'm an investor that likes to get all his money back out of the deal and keep the asset cash flowing, that's a big deal for me. So we're going to go over multifamily versus residential today, and I'm going to show you guys how all this stuff ties into each other. Now, Patty, go ahead. What's your question? I love questions.
Oh, of course. Now it's kind of like I'm trying to keep it short. It might be a little long winded because I'm still
It's okay.
trying to learn. Because I know you spoke yesterday, and I think it was Anthony's live,
Yeah.
and that was eye opening for me. So I am. a stay-at-home mom currently. My kids will be going to school, in July,
Mhm.
and I'm trying to figure out what to do next to try to gain some income. It's a little bit scary out there, of course, like not having that much experience. I don't have my degree. I have some college. I'm looking into getting into real estate. Trying to decide whether I should go with becoming a real estate professional or going into real estate investing. I guess with my personal situation, like I don't really have capital to put into a business right now. So I'm trying to, I guess, get more of an understanding as to what direction I should lean into.
Yeah, no degree. Yeah, if I were you, I would just give up now and just stop doing anything. You're done. Your life is over. It's done. All right. Matter of fact, I'm disconnecting you
No.
from the live. I don't want that bad karma spilling over the rest. No, I'm just kidding. Uh,
Oh
no,
no.
you don't need a degree. I mean, I still like, look, I'm a high school graduate. I went back to school in my 30s when the real estate market tanked in 2007, in 2008. A few years after that, things weren't recovering, and I said, you know what? I'm a smart guy, but I always had trouble with math when I was in high school. So I went back to school, and because I had lost everything already and was bankrupt, so I was like, let me go back to school so I don't have to pay for it because now I'm poor. So I went back to school, and then I went back over the next 2 or 3 years and did really, really well. And it was just something I wanted to prove to myself, but I didn't finish because things started recovering. And me getting a degree, I was already generating at that point two, three, and $400,000 a year in income. So I wasn't going to get a degree because I wasn't working on my degree because I wanted to do anything that had to do with income or a job or anything like that. I did it to prove something to myself. I still need 6 credits to graduate junior college, and and I've never. And I'm a licensed real estate broker, but I don't use my real estate license, not as a real estate investor, because a real estate license is required for you to represent other people. It's not required for you to represent yourself. So, what I would do is I would get all the real estate investing knowledge that you can. And the reason why I stress this is because people don't understand what the most valuable asset that they'll ever possess is. It's right between their ears, right? And when you develop that asset, it adds so much more value into everything else. And Patty, let me give you an example. Let's say that let's say you're one of my students, right? And you call me and you say, "Hey, Otis, look, life's happened. My credit tanked. My, we had some stuff came up, and so we're out of.
Literally me right now. I'll be fully transparent.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's just par for the course, right? My credit tank, I don't have any money, and I'm working a full-time job, or I'm a stay-at-home mom, which is actually much tougher than working a full-time job, by the way. So what do I do? So in that case, now we got to rely on our knowledge. Okay, what would I do if I was in your situation? All right, I don't have the capital to do my own deal right now, but I do know how to put deals together for people. So I know how to assess a deal. I know how to understand how much money I'm going to get back out of the deal, how much I'm going to make. I know I have a circle of influence. My aunt has $8,000. My cousin has $5,000. My other whoever has, maybe $11,000. These folks just got their tax return. My two friends. I'll tell you what. I'll put everybody together. I will call Otis. Otis is going to walk me through how to put the deal together and allow me to get an acquisition fee. And Otis is going to help me with our operating agreement. Otis is going to help me with filing the appropriate entity. And he's going to help me in setting this thing up. And he's going to walk me through it with finding the contractors and all of the things involved to get you to the finish line. And then we'll go ahead and do a payout. And now I've made some money off this situation, and I didn't use capital credit, and I had limited time. So knowing how to do that is another revenue stream. Or let me learn how to pay out of my exit strategy. Right? Let me pay for the deal out of my exit strategy. Well, how do you do that? Well, I have to teach you how to do that. We talked about it yesterday, and it's not something I can teach over just one conversation, but you can go back to, what, but Otis said it was 4 things. He said 4 components to structuring a deal creatively. He said, assess the deal. That's component number 1. He said, get your name on the deed before you have to pay for it. But there was a caveat. He said, I had to incorporate a seller financing component. Okay, got that. I got to be able to add value, got to make the property worth more than I bought it for. And I knew I could do that because I ran the 4 data points in step one. And now I got to exit. So now you have that knowledge, and now you can utilize whatever pre-existing relationships you have with people that own property that may not want them. I can also teach you how to search for these folks, and now you can acquire real estate and pay for it out of the exit and not have to come up with a down payment. So an example of the type of
Mhm.
things that real estate investors do. That's why I tell people, look, focus on the education first and not investing in the real estate. If you got $25,000, that $25,000 as a new investor is not going to take you to the promised land. You may be able to get one deal. You may be able to utilize the Burr method. You may be able to, I'm not saying you can't get a deal with that, but once you have that deal, you're still back at square one. It's not going to be a life-changing situation. But if you invest in your real estate investing education, there's 25 different ways you can invest in real estate. I went over them last week. Just a list, 25 different ways to invest in real estate. Most people are just attracted to the glamorous stuff, right? The fix and flips and the apartment investing and all this stuff. What they don't share with you is, folks, when the market shifts, or maybe you're in a long project and there's some outside forces working against you, like the interest rates keep going up or legislation changes or whatever, you might have to go into survival mode really, really quick. And survival mode means, shoot, this project's not working out. I've got to generate some capital. That's survival mode. So when I teach people how to invest in real estate, I teach them about survival mode first, right? Survival mode first. So Patty, you're in a great position. You're How old are your kids, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh yeah, no. My son is 4 and my daughter's 3.
Oh, that's a good age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would love to tell you, like, look, you can being with them at that age and being a stay-at-home mom is way more important than any type of investing in real estate. If you can survive, just in your current situation, and that time you can't get back. And I think one of the regrets that I have, because I'm locked into this, like I am a real estate guy until the day I die. Like I've been exposed to my entire life. Like I'm locked in. The
Right.
the one thing that I regret is not being able to spend more time with the kids when they were 3, 4 years old. Like one thought that I'm haunted by is, and my son didn't even remember this. He's 27 now, but me, I was in survival mode, and I remember him outside. Just we lived in this apartment, and he didn't know a lot of we didn't have a lot of friends in that apartment, that complex. I actually managed it, and he was just outside bouncing the basketball. And until this day, I still remember him doing that by himself. And I was like, man, I should go outside and play with him or take him to the park. But look, I'm in survival mode. I already lost everything. I got to figure out what we're going to do about this, and this, and that. So if you're in this, and he doesn't remember all that, but for me,
Mm-hmm.
this is,
Yeah, as a parent, it's kind of traumatic.
yeah,
I can understand that. I know with my husband, he feels like he misses out as well, especially when he was active duty. He missed like a lot,
yeah,
being in training and stuff like that. So
yeah. And
yeah.
and I know as parents, we kind of we're harder on ourselves than we should be, because my son's like, I
Mhm.
don't even remember that, right? But so I'll tell you this, Patty. You decide what you want to do, and I'll show you how to do it, regardless of what your current situation is. Um, I was training people to invest across the country while they're working their full-time job. And I think that, and I don't tell people, look, quit your job to jump into real estate investing. Transition. And I don't care what the challenge is, I'll show you how to do it. I've already done all of them. The last 6 deals, seven maybe even eight, but don't quote me on that. I were out of my state, and I was managing these deals from 2,500 miles away, and I didn't see the property in person for any of them. So I tell people, look, stay at your 9 to 5 job or stay in your current situation, and don't let that be an obstacle. Leave, and I'm talking about current job now. You can leave your
Right.
job when you're making more money outside of your job and it's costing you money to stay at your job. So there's ways to do it, Patty.
Mhm.
There's
And I
ways to do it.
appreciate that because it's just like I'm just really interested. I've always had a thing for real estate. Like when we bought our first home, like I was kind of like the nerd who's looking at, okay, like want to make sure we're in an area where we can at least rent the house out. Like, what's good schools? Like, is there parks in the area? Like, kind of like, I look at things from an investment standpoint. So we were
Yeah.
able to rent our first house. Like, we've been like fortunate enough, like we've never had, like for the past at least 3 years, we've had a tenant consistently back to back to back. But I just, of course, like we're doing that. We haven't even like put that under a business or a corporation or anything like that. So that's kind of something that I want to look into as well with that property. But yeah, I just like, cause I'm in Arizona. I see that they're building a lot,
Hmm.
but not a lot of people are buying. Like the house behind us has been sitting vacant for, I want to say, since before we moved into this one.
Hmm.
So it's like I see, like I don't know how you feel about new construction or getting into that, investing in that, but
Okay.
so I see that there's some opportunity, which has me thinking like maybe like finding a way to scoop up some properties and just turning it into rentals, or whether it just makes more sense to try to find multifamily, because like I said, we do have like some connections in Texas, and we're in Arizona now, so I'm just trying to decide, like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm all over the place.
Can I ask you in you look young enough in your picture where I can well, I don't think you'll be offended at this question, but
No, I'm 32.
you're 32?
Mm-hmm.
You have all the time in the world. Right? Now, figuratively speaking, right? We
Right.
not all the time in the world. But at 32, like it was another I lost hey Karen, I'm gonna go ahead and mute you on a Clubhouse if you can. I don't think it's there you go. I was 38 when I was had to go bankrupt, right? Like it was no, I was probably about 35. Anyway, the point I'm making is like you've
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of time to figure it out. All right. What I always say is, hey Rose, go ahead and come up here, Rose. What I always say is, just do one. Just do one.
Mm-hmm.
Because what people don't realize is when you do one deal, there is so even if you don't make any money doing it, there is so much learning in that one deal. And that's why I don't keep when I'm training people, we don't keep them behind a computer screen for 8 or 9 months. Hey, 6, 7 weeks. Here's the fundamentals. Now let's go out there and do the stuff because that's where you actually learn. If you're doing, let's say you just do a flip somewhere, you've learned how to work with vendors. You've learned how to structure, right? Because if you're working with hard money lenders, you got to be structured a certain way. Most of them won't do stuff in your personal name. You've learned
Right.
how to facilitate an entire transaction. You've learned how to work with title and escrow. You've learned the expectations from the lender. You've learned how to communicate with insurance. All of this education in your first deal. Even if you don't make any money, your first deal, that makes it real. Even if you lose money. I have students that lost money on their first deal. Some of them lost 3,000, 4,000 on their first deal. Things change, things happen. But the
Mm-hmm.
value, the education that they got from that is worth far more than they lost. I've had some students that had a huge wins on their first deal. And I always tell them the same thing. Don't get used to it. Right. Just like I tell folks that take a loss on their first deal. Don't get used to it. Right. Don't get used to it. Don't get used to it. Don't get used to it. So Patty, you've got some time. I would say because there's so many ways to invest in real estate. Most people don't know what they want to do. They know what they see and they're like, oh, I could do that. Home flipping, I could do that. Long term hold investing, apartment buildings, I can do that. But real estate investing is about having as many tools in your toolbox as possible and knowing
Mm-hmm.
which one to pull out to help you meet your current objective, whatever that is. So you are in the right place, Patty. Patty, when did you? Is that the first time you ever met me, or online? Is that the first time you ever saw
Yes,
me?
like I just came up, it just happened because, TikTok streets are a little bit, they get a little rough. But so I've been seeing a
It's
lot of
sketchy. Yeah.
toxic stuff, and I've been trying to like change my, I guess, my algorithm to kind of get into more stuff that I'm interested in, like wealth building and financial literacy. This kind of what I've been coming across. And then all of a sudden I was scrolling and I came across Anthony's live. I saw you in there. I heard you talking about real estate investing, and it just, y'all just seemed really like just real people, not
Yeah.
like people with Lambos in their pictures on their, all this stuff, just like really flashy. It's just, not gimmicky. You're just like a real person who genuinely wants to help people. And I just kind of gravitated towards that. Then I end up following you as well. And now here I am.
Yeah, no, Anthony's a really Anthony and his team. He's like my brother. Like we're really really close, and not Diddy close, but you know what I mean. We're really,
Yeah.
like I'm not
Pause.
Diddy, he's not Meek Mill. Like it's not that kind of. But I met Anthony because we would speak at these different events, and when we were speaking at the event, I'd always I'm very very competitive, right? And some of these events that we spoke at, they would bring in a keynote speaker, and I'd always be like, let me go right on before them, so they're not gonna want to go after me. Like I'm that guy. And Anthony's the same way. And Anthony, we met and we were hanging out for a couple years. I didn't know Anthony was rich until like way after that, right? Way after that. Like, he drives a regular Tesla, not the big, just the regular three, the Model 3, the little one or whatever.
Mhm.
And we were going out, and I'm like, and I always pick up checks because I don't ever want somebody to be uncomfortable if we all go out and they don't have it, because I've been there before, and it's just so I always pick up the check. And then he goes, "Hey man, why don't you come down and stay at the house for a couple days?" And I was like, I don't know, staying at people's house,
Without the
like,
baby oil.
yeah, it's like a sleepover. Like, I don't know, man. I went out to this man's house. I'll tell you this. One of his neighbors goes to work in a helicopter. Like he's got a helicopter landing pad at his house. Like he lives in that type of neighborhood. I was so mad. I was like, man, you are treating every time, right? And he always offers to pick up the check, but I always but you never know, right? But yeah,
Yeah.
he's a good dude. He's a real dude. I actually on the real estate side, on the real estate sales side, I'm a part of his office in Southern California. I'm not active, but I hold my license there, and he and I are going to be doing some events and some other things. So you're always in good hands with Anthony and his team. So good people.
Wonderful.
But you decide where you want to go, and I'll help you get there. All right.
Yay. Okay, well this is encouraging. I feel and I, not to throw the race thing in there, but it's just refreshing to know that there's people of color that are in these industries that want to help, and it's nice to see.
Oh no, I identify as a middle-aged white woman, so that doesn't apply to me. Yes, I am a yes, and I should be addressed as such for anyone else listening. I'm a middle-aged white Caucasian woman. So it helps when I get pulled over. So-
Oh my
no,
goodness.
yeah, it's one of those things where there's just a bunch of garbage out there, and
Right.
I didn't know that there was this much garbage out there, because if you're online and you are putting out all this garbage, it's only a matter of time before you get found out. So I don't understand that logic why someone would want to do that. So my background, for everybody that's listening that may not be fully aware, I grew up in a real estate family. My father's been in real estate since 1971. I was going to real estate meetings at 3 years old, and by 10, I could have a real estate conversation with the average adult. I spent the better part of 20 years in the multifamily commercial industry. I was overseeing 650 million in multifamily commercial assets. So I was on the operations side. On the lending side, my father and I had a mortgage company, and we funded just under $1 billion in the short time that we had. Well, not short time, it was 13 years. I was a notary public and had a national notary signing agent company back in 2001, 2002, because you guys know I talk about entrepreneurship a lot. On the entrepreneur side, I took $585 one day, created a company, non-real estate related, right? Created this company on a fluke from nothing. That company went on to generate seven figures. I'm also a consultant on development projects. I'm always consulting on some type of development project, domestic and abroad. I own multiple asset classes in real estate all over the country. I founded the Four Data Points Academy about 4 years ago. We used to be called James Street Capital. Now I had to brand. We got too big too fast. I didn't realize the demand for real estate education was what it was, so we had to break off. And the educational component was a standalone as of a few years ago. So everything that I teach people and everything that I talk about, I've actually done. And I'm very transparent if I'm teaching something that I haven't done in a long time or that I don't normally do, then I'll have consultants and experts come in to make sure that all my students and the people that are listening are taken care of. So I'm very, very particular about my personal brand and just the overall response that we get from the public when we when we're out doing our thing. Are you in Las Vegas area? No. So that 702 area code, I'm talking to folks on TikTok now. That 702 area code is my attorney's office out in out in Las Vegas. So all of my mail, everything goes to my attorney's office, and then they'll go ahead and forward me and scan it and send it to me. Because remember, entrepreneurs, real estate investors, business owners, there's three things we want to accomplish: tax favor, liability protection, and anonymity. All right. So we'll tie that in a little later too. But Patty, did I answer your question? You feel a little more confident?
Yes, I do. And I definitely feel more confident. I'm going to text that number.
Yeah, just
So,
yeah. If you guys text yes to the word, text yes to the word, then I was going to say the number. If you text yes to phone number 702-710-8030, that's the number above my head on TikTok. I'll get you what you need. But I'm gonna warn you guys. I'm not going to remember what I told you to text for. So when you text, I'm probably going to respond with, "Hey, are you interested in getting into real estate investing?" What's up, Eddie Gwynn? I see you over there on Clubhouse. Go ahead and come up, brother. What's up, Sean? What's going on, brother? You guys feel free to come up. Eddie Gwynn, long time no see. All right.
Not a thing, sir. How are you? Good
Oh,
morning. Good
oh,
afternoon, rap.
I got to get the same kind of phone you got, Sean, because I don't know whether you got a Rockford Fosgate amp hooked up to your phone, but you be in there. You be in the mic, brother. I got to exchange my mic for the one you got. How you been, man?
I'm doing well. The craziness is this across my desk. I'm sitting back in the chair. It ain't even like I got a mic on.
Oh man, I'd hate to be one of your kids getting yelled at. You you shake somebody's soul. It's good to hear from you, brother. All right, we've got a couple questions. Okay, so we're on different platforms, folks. So I'll stop. I'll ask a question if you guys are on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. I'll see the questions pop up in front of me. We're gonna get into must be an Alpine. Must be an Alpine. We'll get into some of the different strategies today, but we're talking about multifamily commercial investing now. You guys heard me mention I have a background in multifamily commercial on the operation side. And it's interesting how things work because when I was in the multifamily industry, I moved around a little bit and there were some opportunities that I took advantage of. And then once I committed to that opportunity, the company was sold or the asset that I was responsible for, I was sold. So I was kind of in limbo. And can you speak to beginner investor couple wanting to pull some equity to invest in a yeah, absolutely. Nicola, why don't you come up? Let me I'll invite you up and we'll go ahead and go over that in just a second. So what happened was I was always kind of, upset that I kept moving around and, they'd say, hey, otherwise they would have to let me go. I'd have to get laid off. So they'd say, okay, well, let me put you over there with the development team. And they'd say, okay, well, okay, go ahead and spend a few months with the construction team. And all of these things that I thought were bad were actually really good because I was getting experience that I wasn't even ready to, absorb yet. And when I'm teaching people how to invest in real estate, now I'm equipped because I've been on the operation side, I've been on the acquisition side, I've been on the construction side, I've been on the development side. Now when I teach somebody, I can take them all the way from start to finish. And a lot of people that are doing this stuff can't, right? Nicola, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you all right. Now, what was your question?
Awesome. So, the funny thing is, I had my real estate license back in '06 in Atlanta when it was not a great time, and I was very young back then. And long story short, my partner and I bought our first home and built it in 2020 in Texas,
Where at? What city?
and in Forney, actually, the burbs,
Okay.
and it's growing immensely. So I've been going back and forth with the idea of wanting to kind of rent it out, get something closer in town. But needless to say, we have some good equity, and I'd love to pull some of it to invest in a real estate opportunity.
Hmm.
I've done property management with Section 8.
Yeah.
I used to work in new home construction. I've been learning about all kinds of unique opportunities like vacant lots, truck yards. Like, I'm very creative and open to different unconventional opportunities.
Hmm.
And my partner is very kind of not as open as I am. So I would just love any kind of tips on what I could propose to my partner. Like, hey, let's take some equity and maybe invest in this because it is quote unquote a safe opportunity, a safe option to kind of get their feet wet and re-wet my feet because I've been out of it for a long time. I haven't
Amen.
been doing any real estate stuff since we built our own house.
Amen. So I'm your guy. I'm the best point of contact you're gonna find. It's the truth. I don't know how to say that any different way.
Yeah, it's my second time finding you on here, and I definitely feel what Patty was saying.
Can't
So
say it any clearer.
Amen. So
thanks for having me.
no, and thank you for asking the question. The reason I say that is because, uh, so you got some equity you can pull out of your house, great. But what if we could invest without having to pull the equity out? So, I teach people all of their options because, of course, there's capital there. But if you pull out the capital and you're not savvy enough to know what to do with it, then guess what? That capital is deployed and your return may be subpar, right?
Sure.
So when I'm teaching people how to invest in real estate, I'm teaching them how to be on a beach somewhere, wherever they want, and not have to be anywhere at any time or work with anybody unless they absolutely want to. All they have to do is check their bank to make sure them checks got deposited, right?
Amen.
So that's always the ultimate goal. Now, the thing about pulling equity out of your personal residence is what people miss is when you deploy that capital on a new investment, when you're underwriting it to see how profitable that new investment is, they forget to incorporate the cost of that HELOC or that money that they pulled out and compare it to the new investment. So the cost of that money is going to offset the profits on the new investment. Amen?
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So let's say you pull equity out, you go do a property, you go buy a property. Let's say you buy let's call it a rehab and rent, right? You find a property, you find a lender that'll finance the purchase and the improvements, and then that same lender will give
You rang.
give you permanent financing on the property on your exit. And let's say it's cash flowing $700 a month. All right. Now on paper, that looks really, really good. But if you used a home equity line of credit for the down payment on that new project, and that home equity line of credit costs you $600 a month, well, now it's not as attractive, right?
Sure.
Because when you figure that in, now it's only a net profit of $100 a month. So what I would do is before you pull anything out of that house, decide if you want to be a real estate investor or you just want to buy another piece of real estate, because it's not the same. Because if you want to be a real estate investor, we're looking at a long-term plan and a game plan. What's up, Jasmine? And a game plan to put you in position to acquire more real estate and utilize that capital from the HELOC over and over and over again, because every deal that we get on our exit, we pay that HELOC back. So, so you're learning to use the same money over and over and over again, leaving a trail of cash flowing assets in your wake. So, and you guys are always, I'm always going to go back. First of all, I'll answer any question you guys want, but I'm always going to go back to learning how to be a real estate investor first, even if you don't want to be a real estate investor, because guess what? Any of my homes, I can just give them notice and move into it. Right, I got a property in Houston that's sitting vacant right now. It was built 5 years ago. It's fully furnished. I had to evict somebody. Now, if I wanted to move to Houston, I could just move into that property. Right, so it's not always about being a real estate investor per se. It's about understanding the real estate investing game, because you may have to utilize it for your personal residence. But once you learn it, no one can take that away. So now another thing, Nicola, because you and Patty had something in common, had something in common. You both have partners, right? So when I'm talking to, I think we're about 45% male in our real estate family and 55% female. When I'm talking to a young lady on a discovery call, right? And sometimes I'll take the calls, sometimes James, who helps me with operations, sometimes he takes the calls. But one of the things that I always say is, how does your significant other feel about what it is that you're doing? And the reason I say that is, if the significant other is not on board, that is a potential challenge for you. And then I ask them, you're ready to write this check, right? It's because it's 6,000 to 15, depending on the level of support and all that stuff. So you're ready to write this check. What is your significant other going to say when you write this check? Because I'm someone's significant other too. And if my woman came back to me talking about, hey, I just wrote this $6,000 check for this guy to teach me real estate. What guy? A guy I met on the internet. How does that sound? Right. So what we do is we encourage couples to come in together, and sometimes, and a lot of, well, enough of the time, the significant other is skeptical, right? They're skeptical of the whole thing, as they should be, right?
Yeah.
So there's been times where I said, hey, have your significant other call me, because if I'm a legitimate organization and what I say is legitimate, there's no level of skepticism in the world that I can't combat with information, right?
Sure.
So I encourage you and him to kind of get on board together
Yeah.
and go through this journey together. We allow people to join together without having to pay more, right? We allow couples, mothers and sons, fathers and daughters to do that. And that's a very important component too, by the way. Yeah. But yeah, you decide which way you want to go and I'll help you. If you text the word yes to that number sitting above my head, then I'll get you squared away.
Sure, I appreciate it. And I've seen a lot of different other people who educate online and they talk about, using other people's money. And I did ask you a question a couple weeks ago when I first came upon your channel about if you use LLC for each individual property, but you mentioned land trusts. So that's something else that I'm learning about.
Yeah. So there's how to be structured for your real estate asset. And that's not always the same as how to be structured for your entire operation. Right. So LLCs and C Corps and nonprofits, they all have a place and they all have a use. And it's really important to understand what your overall objective is, not just in the world of real estate, but in all your finances, right? Because a lot of these things tie in together. Now, when we're talking about investing in real estate, I always say there's three things I want to accomplish: tax favor, liability protection, and anonymity. Anonymity is really big for me because when you see all these people flossing in these Lambos and doing all this stuff online, I don't want anybody to know what I have. I am no better off for flashing that stuff online than I am, period, right? It's just not, there's no net benefit to doing that. And the people that are swayed by that stuff, those aren't my type of clients anyway. My type of clients are a little more older, wiser. They kind of see through all that stuff anyway. So when it comes to legal structure, I have people when people come into our real estate family, I have them meet with a consultant who's an expert in structure because they've got questions that they're going to ask. There's a line of questioning and they're going to get you in a position where you can make the best decision based on your situation. Now, the surface level, if we're just talking about real estate, most of my properties are going to be in a land trust because some of them I bought in my personal name. And because there's a mortgage attached to it, I can't just transfer it into an LLC. Not that an LLC would be the best option, but I couldn't do that because it's a violation of the mortgage agreement. I trigger the due on sale clause. A land trust is exempt for that. We also call it a real estate privacy trust, right? And then it's a matter of, okay, now who's the managing member of this land trust? What entity of mine is the managing member of this land trust? And then that entity, who's the managing member of that? And how does that tie into all these other things? So I have consultants that come in and they take care of all that. I heard that. What, you drinking some Hennessy this early in the morning? Y'all heard a glass. You just dropping some ice in the glass? Girl, send us some.
My doggy bowl.
she was like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take this sip while he explaining. He ain't gonna.
No. Not my vice. No.
That's
Knowledge.
their
Knowledge.
mind.
I like to get tipsy on knowledge.
Amen. So what I recommend is people not do anything when it comes to structure unless they've spoken to a consultant, because your legal structure is going to evolve and it's going to change. The more assets you get, a lot of people are kind of front loading and before they have anything to protect. So yeah, there isn't one way of doing it because our situations are different. So what applies to you may not apply to me.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Amen. Now, did you check?
Yeah, I think for the most part,
Go ahead, Sean.
I think for the most part, all of that's customizable based on your personal situation. So nobody can really advise you on that. It would have to be someone that you coordinated with to figure out what you wanted as far as your protection personally and for all the assets, as well as how you maneuver them around. And that would give you the blueprint on how to structure it.
Yes, exactly. So, I think we're all coming from the same place. Ellis says, tell your partner, hey, let's work on getting financially free. Actually, yeah, that's pretty good. What's up, Ellis? Ellis, is he still in here? Is Ellis still in here? All right, I think he stepped out. Yeah, so folks, all this stuff can be overwhelming. So when somebody comes to me and it's their, and you guys on TikTok, feel free to share the room too. We're trying to, incorporate more people into our page. This is a new TikTok account for us. So the more exposure we get, the more opportunities we can create for other people, not just my students, but the more we'll be able to, share this information with the general public. So when people are starting, this stuff can be really overwhelming, and people don't know what questions to ask, and people don't know what direction they want to go. So it's my job as a true mentor, not a TikTok mentor or Instagram mentor, a true mentor, to have those conversations and bring that information out of them with the understanding that they don't know what questions to ask. So I start everybody in the same place. And when we're talking about investing in real estate, how to assess a simple real estate deal. And it's the same 4 questions that I've been preaching about from the mountaintops. It's the same logo on my hat. It's the same branding image you guys see all over the place. 4 data points, 4 questions. What is the cost of what am I willing to pay? That's 1. What is the cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? It's just 4 questions. Your whole real estate investing world is just those 4 questions, right? And then we beat those questions to death, right? We see what the answers tell us for those 4 questions. We see what information we can deduce once we have those answers. Answering those 4 questions will let us know what our exit strategy is going to be. It's going to let us know what our margins are going to be, how much potential profit we're going to make, how we can exit. Is the income this property generates going to be enough to service the debt when it's all said and done? So we teach people how to interpret those questions first, and then we move on to the next step. Well, what's the next step? Creative financing, seller financing, subject to, lease options, lease purchases, and all of these other things, that tool belts. We just continue to add these tools. What's up, Carmen? Add these tools. And because we don't have an end date, all right, now I want you guys to absorb this for just 1 second, okay? We don't have an end date. The reason we don't have an end date, first of all, for us to operate like that is far more expensive for us than it is for you guys. The reason we don't have an end date is because I know full well that you can't turn somebody into a seasoned real estate investor in 6, 7, 8 months. You just can't. So the people that are selling that type of education either know it and don't care because it's more cost effective to run a bunch of people through the program, or they don't know it and there's a level of incompetence there. So I know that. So I've got students with me that have been with me. They've been coming to classes. Classes just repeat, right? Sometimes we'll throw some new classes in there, so there's continued education. 4 times a week, you can come and get training and help and support. The folks that have one-on-ones with me, they got my personal cell phone number, and I tell them to use it. Don't make a major decision without talking to me first. If I don't pick up text, I'll get right back to you, all right? Because I know that the journey is a long-term journey. Right now, you may be a beginner, but we have people that come in that are intermediate. Well, we're still going to be with you when you get to intermediate and when you get to advanced. We've got lessons like, joint venture lessons and some private equity stuff. Those lessons are in the vault. None of my students are ready for any of that, but they will be, and they will be having conversations eventually about getting vertically integrated. Now, I've got people that I've been helping for 3 years. 3 years. And when they started with me, it was 4 years. My first people started January 2021. And I told them, I said, you guys are going to get the most benefit out of anybody to ever join because of what it cost to join. It was $1,500 to join when we first started. We had 8 courses. I didn't plan to, go past that. And we had, so I was very, very transparent in what it was. And then I wanted to make sure that those people never had to pay again. And they haven't, because they reaped the benefit of rocking with me from day one. And I told people, look, you better get my rookie card now, because there's going to be a time where you're going to tell people that we were on Zoom calls together and ain't nobody going to believe you. And somebody was like, oh, it's arrogant. No, it's the truth. And I've never been wrong about any truths that had to do with me and my performance and where I was going. So everything I'm telling you guys is for a reason. We have zero end date. So we have some people that now have 30 doors, started with me 2.5 years ago. They're not paying anymore, right? But now those conversations are different. Hey, Otis, we're looking to get vertically integrated. We just bought a construction company and so on and so forth. So now the conversations are, okay, let's do some, let's make you in that area the exclusive servicer for our students that are doing rehabs in that area. They weren't ready to have that conversation 2 years ago. All right. So when you guys hear me say real estate family, it's long-term real estate family. It's in perpetuity because I have a lot of confidence in my ability to turn you into a real estate investor sooner rather than later. And later, you're a seasoned real estate investor. You're still part of the family. Now we can just do different stuff together. Let's put a project together. Let's build something. Let's lend on something. Now we're just family, right? All right. I'm sorry. That's my baby. So sometimes I overtalk. I get a little too attached to it. All right. So if you guys are interested in real estate investing, just text the word yes to that number above my head, 702-710-8030. I'll go ahead and put it in the chat, but bear with me because I can't multitask. 702-710-8030. I'll put it in the chat on Clubhouse. And let's get into how do we underwrite a multifamily commercial deal? Now, Nicola, I don't want to go forward. Did I answer all of your questions?
Yeah, I'm good. I'll definitely text you.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Amen. Mimi, I see
Definitely
you.
look for Business Cat Fund on all your social media too.
Amen. Mimi, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you? How's everyone?
I'm all right. Did you have a question? You just hanging out with us?
I'm just hanging out, just listening. I'm dipping and dabbing in the flipping and holding, and I did have a question, but I don't know if I really want to ask it.
Oh, you want to ask it? Don't. This is where questions come to blossom. I just made that up.
No such thing as a
So
dumb question.
no, it's not about a dumb question. It's actually more of experience.
Okay.
So I on a third property and second, and one is a wholesale that I'm doing right now.
Okay.
And I ran into a squatter.
Oh yes, we love those. What city and state?
Yeah. In Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Okay.
Yeah, it's prevalent out there. It's bad. It's
Yeah.
really bad.
Okay.
I guess I would like to know what's your advice on that. Like how have you, if you've ran into it or know someone has run into it, how have you handled it?
Oh yeah, I've run into it.
Comment.
Well, let me say this. Oh man, this is tough because
Right.
dealing with it isn't tough. I just, there's a certain person that I'm trying to be, right? The person that God wants me to be. I don't know if I'm him yet. I'm trying to get there.
Amen.
And
Just ask him to speak through you.
He's working on you.
look, and me and squatters, that's really tough for me because I have to refrain from being the person that I want to be. You just in my house and you just not gonna leave? Okay. So let me give you the right answer. The right answer is you have to evict them, go through the eviction process. And then once they get evicted, the sheriff comes, and by that time they probably won't even be there anymore because they're afraid of what happens when the sheriff comes. But by that time, go ahead and change the locks and make sure that you make it so they can't get back in there. But yeah, I had a squatter in I have a property in, I think it was Missouri. Was it St. Joe? Missouri, yeah. So and the woman died. She OD'd. This is one that I was using for transitional housing though. This woman died. I gave her chance after chance after chance because she had a kid. She had her boyfriend or whatever would come in and out, and he was probably the one, giving her, all the harmful stuff. And I get a call one day from the cops, and come to find out, the young lady had went to her mom's house and OD'd. And then the boyfriend Um, wouldn't leave. Got in there and wouldn't leave. Now, I was going to go out there. I was going to take a flight out there and get him to leave personally. But sometimes the Holy Spirit will be like, "Look, man, you're
Not working.
yeah, you're past this now. You're past this now." So I said, "You know what? I'll just go through the eviction process." And it only cost me about $500 to go through the eviction process out there, and then we were good to go. I got it re-rented.
Okay, well, how about $4,000 to $7,000 and 4 to 9 months to get them out?
I'm sorry, what? You said what?
4 to 7,000 because it's on the LLC, and 4 to 9 months just to get them out.
In Philadelphia?
Yes, sir.
You said because it's under an LLC. Why would that matter?
Well, because now that because it's on the LLC, they tell you have to do an injection. You can't do an eviction. You have to do an injection, which is separate. And because it's under an LLC, you now are a business owner, so you have to get a lawyer.
Well, an eviction attorney should be able to navigate that process. Have you tried an eviction attorney yet?
They call it something different in Philly. They say it's an ejection. It's not.
Ejection. Remind me to never do business in Philly.
So an injection attorney.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're from $4,000 to $7,000.
Oh, that is highway robbery.
Yeah, depending on where you are, it's definitely difficult to get them out or go through the process. I know that there have been a lot of information out there regarding a workaround or a loophole. I think that some of the investors in the past have been successful at finding a contractor that was working on the property, writing a lease to them as the leaseholder, and then once the tenant or squatter leaves the dwelling, you change the locks and state that the GC or the person doing the work is now the tenant. And then when you go to court, you provide that paperwork because they usually don't have anything, and the lease and the leaseor trumps everything.
Yeah, I'll move in with him. We roommates now. Yeah, I've never heard of it being that much to evict somebody. Is Pennsylvania a blue state? Anybody?
I believe so.
Yeah. Shout out to oh, by the way, folks. Okay. So I don't know what to tell you, and I've never had it be that expensive, but I also don't invest in blue states. Pretty much for that reason.
For that reason, okay.
It's just too tenant friendly. I did evictions in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, South Carolina, Missouri. The most it ever cost me was about $600. South Carolina cost me $300. Here in the Bay Area, about $1,200, assuming we don't go to trial. So I've never seen it.
How long did it take in Cali?
Well, in Cali, this was my territory, so I oversaw 3,000 units here. So I was responsible for about 14,000 tenants. So I've been to court, 36 times here in Cali. Eviction.
So they know you.
Oh yeah, they knew me. I didn't have to go because at the corporate level, my position was not the one that had to be there. The managers that reported to me had to be there. I just went because I wanted to make sure didn't nobody play with us. So yeah, it's and I've never lost either, right? So I want to note that. So anything I say about eviction court, I've got personal experience. That's yeah. I don't know what to tell you there. That's. I wish I had some better advice for you, but that's part of the reason I don't invest in blue states. They're too tenant friendly. And folks, by blue states, I'm talking about Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Washington State, Oregon, and California. You would have to give me property for free to be a landlord out. And now I live in California, so I get all the attraction.
New York is much quicker, but Pennsylvania definitely got a lot of different nuances in their code because it's one of the original states. It's going to be different than everywhere else. But I think, again, you should look up the information on trying to provide a lease and a leasee to the courts to show that you have a tenant and they have nothing. If they don't have any documentation stating they should be there, then the lease will trump everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you cut the utilities off?
Yeah, somewhere. So we just boarded up the place, put an ADT in there, and so we're gonna see what happens.
Okay. Yeah, keep me posted on that. I have two students that were doing projects out there, and we had a situation where in Philadelphia, we had a situation where the contractor just one day he just stopped showing up. And he was doing good work up to that point. He just stopped showing up. So I had to walk them through going through small claims court and doing all that stuff. So yeah, I probably won't be investing out in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's I was talking to some people and they were saying, it's unfortunate, but it's running rampant out there.
Mm.
I didn't hear that before I started.
It's like the purge, huh?
Yeah, yeah, it's running rampant, and unfortunately, the law enforcement they can't do anything at all. So
Yeah, I actually know some law enforcement that were that's out on that force in Philadelphia. Oh, well, sorry. I wish I had better news for you, sis. All right, let's
Sound like it's time to put it up for sale.
it was up for sale. That's what happened. I believe that someone forgot to turn the dial, and that's how they got in.
Oh, the listing agent.
Yes.
Oh, I would enlist that listing agent's help.
I'm not sure who, because there was so many of them going through the property.
Oh, the buyer's agent. So the people that are showing.
Yeah.
Oh, for potential buyers, the
Yeah.
selling agent. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Well, folks, I'm gonna do a quick recap. We are going to now we're going to get into multifamily commercial underwriting. Right. It's basically all the things that we look at when we're dealing in multifamily commercial. Now, if you guys have, I know some of you guys were in previous rooms where we talked about entrepreneurship. So I'll do a quick recap, a room reset. You'll hear things like Venture U. Venture U is a portion of the 4 Data Points Academy that specializes in entrepreneurship. And we have a workshop in Medellin, Colombia on the first week of Q4. So October 1st to October 6th. I can answer questions about the entrepreneurship stuff today if you want, but some of you guys have asked about that event. It is in Medellin, Colombia, October 1st to October 6th. That's at ventureu.live. Venture, VENTUREU.live. That'll answer all your questions. You can get a brochure. We haven't really started marketing it yet. We got about 16 spots. I'm flying in every consultant that you're going to need to get you from 0 to 100 in starting and scaling your business. These are for people that either want to start or have a business that's generating less than $10 million. If you're generating more than $10 million, we can't help you. We can, but that's a different type of conversation, which would involve different people to get you scaled up. So 10 million, if you're making 10 million or over, we can't help you. 10 million or under, you want to get to that point, we can. That's ventureu.live. Ascend You is a different division of the 4 Data Points Academy led by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Alfred Smith. This is more personal development, leadership training. You guys hear, if you guys see that word, just know that it's not rolled out yet. So I won't be taking any questions about that, but just know that it is a thing that's associated with us. That being said, underwriting. So what is underwriting? Underwriting is basically, it's a process of evaluating a property's potential to produce profit. Come on back up here. Rose. All right, to produce profit. Okay. So we got to understand the property in the market. Now we're talking about multifamily commercial, and I'll say this. Multifamily commercial requires a bit more due diligence, not because of how it's valued, right, based on its financials, but because you have more doors to fill in a given space. So if you have 20 doors, if you're buying a 20-unit apartment building, there's 20 doors to fill. Whereas if you were buying a single-family home in that one area, it's just one door to fill, right? So there's things that I need to understand about the property in the market. One, what type of property is it? Is it garden style? Is it mid-rise? Is it a walk-up? When it comes to maintenance, I need to know those things to see what type of maintenance issues may arise. How many units is it and what kind of mix? I need to know how many units it is because I have to look at the financials and I first need to determine how much income that this thing can make. So if it is a 20-unit building and 10 units are 1 bedrooms, 5 units are 2 bedrooms, and we'll say 5 units are 3 bedrooms, I have to see what my potential rent is going to be. So I have to do a market survey for 1 bedrooms and see what 1 bedrooms go for in that area. Let's say they go for $1,000. I got to do the same thing for 2 bedrooms. 2 bedrooms, let's say they go for $1,300 and there's 5 of them, right? I got to do the same thing for 3 bedrooms. Let's say 3 bedrooms go for $1,700 and there's 5 of those. That makes up a total of 20 units. So my potential rent, where my phone at? My potential rent, that's always where I start. What is the potential rent? What is the most that this asset can make me? And once I've looked at all of the different unit types, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and I went and saw what they go for, what the market rate is for those, I can start plugging in numbers. So I've got 10 1 bedrooms at $1,000 a piece, right? So that's $10,000 a month for that. And then I've got, let's do it this way. So we've got for 1 bedrooms, $10,000. For 2 bedrooms, let me see, there's 5 of them at $1,300. So 5 times $1,300, that's $6,500 for the month. And then we got 5 3 bedrooms at $1,700 each. 1,700 times 5 equals $8,500. So I see 8,500 plus 10,000 plus 6,500. All right, let's do that again. 10,000 plus, I said times, I mean plus 6,500 plus 8,500. So we got a total of $25,000 a month. So $25,000 a month times 12, I know that this thing will gross $300,000. The first thing I need to do is understand the gross potential rent. The gross potential rent. Gross potential rent is the amount of rental income you receive if the property is 100% occupied at market rent. Okay. The important part is at market rent, not just 100% occupied, but you're getting market rent for every unit. Okay. So I need to understand how many units and what the mix is so I can do my due diligence to see what my gross potential rent is going to be. I want to know what condition the property is in. 4 data points. What does it cost? What is the cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? I need to know what condition it's in so I can figure out what data point number 2 is. What's it going to cost to fix up? Is the neighborhood growing? Is it stable? Or is it declining? That makes a big difference because you can have 2 identical apartment buildings in 2 different markets with almost similar numbers, but one is on the incline and one is on the decline with respect to whether the neighborhood's growing or not. What are comparable rents? Are there any major employers nearby? What's the local vacancy rate? These are all things that have to be taken into consideration. And I put a lot more weight on some of these things, the more doors that I have to fill. Now, I'm not up in the 100 and above units. Okay. That's not the type of investor I am. Once you get over 100 units, with few exceptions, most of those investors are what do you call it? Institutional investors, right? So they're very well capitalized. They're not dipping below 100 units. It's not profitable for them. Those aren't folks I'm trying to compete with. All right. So we've got to understand the property and the market, right? What type of property is it? How many units? What's the unit mix? What's the condition? What's the neighborhood like? Is it stable or declining or growing? What are comparable rents in the area? Are there any major employers nearby? What's the local vacancy rate? Now, here's food for thought. Just because there's a major employer nearby does not mean that you should run and buy a property because of that. I'll give you an example. And keep this same theme when we're talking about real estate investing. Thank you, everybody that shared the room on TikTok. It's much appreciated. I can see everybody that's sharing it. So thank you very much for that. I'll give you an example. Some years ago, Amazon, there was rumors that Amazon was going to, or conversations about Amazon putting a center in South San Jose, almost going into on the border of San Jose, California. And I got a bunch of phone calls from people saying, hey, is it a good time to buy out there? Is it a good time? There was a lot of scurrying, right? The first thing I always say is don't take it seriously until they pull permits. And I check and they didn't pull any permits. All right. So I didn't take it seriously at all. But I had to have a conversation with some folks because they were looking at buying based on that information. I said, okay, well, let's look at that. What is the average home price in that particular area? Now I know that because I grew up there. right? The average home price for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath is about 1.6 million in that area. Okay. What does the average employee make at an Amazon fulfillment center? At that time, it was $22 an hour. It's probably more now, but at that time, it was $22 an hour. So not a single employee at this 10,000 employee facility outside of upper management can afford to buy a house there. So why would you buy a house in hopes of renting it out? And it gets worse if you try to buy a multifamily because you say, well, they can probably afford, an apartment. So maybe I'll buy some multifamily. To build a 5-unit in that area, you're probably looking at about $4 to $5 million, right? And the rental rates in that area for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, a nice one, will run you about $4,000 a month, right? $22 an hour is not going to be able to support that. So when you look at everything and take a deeper dive into some of these conversations, you realize that all the talk and all of the, hey, this is happening in the rumor mill, investors look at actual data, right? And if they're going to make a decision, they review actual data to support that argument. And me as a mentor, it's my job to teach you what data to look at. And then while you're executing, to have the conversation with you so we can talk through some things you may or may not be considering. All right. All right. You guys ever get tired of hearing the sound of your own voice? Sometimes I get tired of hearing the sound of my own voice. And it is a lovely voice, but I still get tired of hearing it. It's okay.
You're dropping gems, so I'm just listening.
You know what I'm saying?
I was about to say, carry on, cut it out.
Look, I'm used to that. The reason why I ask for, to be interrupted, I don't mind people interrupting me, because what people don't realize is I'm used to talking about this stuff for 5, 6, 7 hours straight. We have workshops where I'm up there talking. When I do a workshop, it is teach the whole time. So I'm up there talking and going over this stuff for 7, 8 hours straight. And the reason I don't pause, and I need to get better at it, is because if I stop talking, ain't nobody gonna be talking. It's gonna sound like this. See how uncomfortable that was? I let it go on for a little too long. You see how uncomfortable that was? So I'm trying to avoid that. You guys on TikTok can see me, so it's All right. So let's start gathering the property's financials. Rose, I got you. Let's go over the property's financials. Now, multifamily commercial is valued not only based on the income that it generates, but more specifically, the net operating income. So what does that mean? A multifamily commercial building could be grossing a crazy amount, right? That alone doesn't make it profitable because you have to take into consideration the expenses associated with that. So we look at what it grosses minus expenses. That net operating income is going to be the determining factor in how much it's valued. All right. So I'm going to give you guys a master class on what documents to request during the due diligence phase. And I'm going to explain what those documents are. Now, there's 4 basic documents that most of the time listing agents that have these properties for sale already have at the ready. Now, if it's a mom and pop, if you're a real estate investor and you guys are, if you're a real estate investor and you are having conversations with people that don't know that they're sellers yet, like off-market deals, they're not going to have a lot of this stuff, especially the mom and pop. All right. The first thing is a rent roll. Pretty simple. Sorry. I told my woman she's not allowed to. She's real independent, so I told her she's not allowed to take the trash out or bring the trash in because it makes me look bad. Makes me look bad. All right. So the rent roll. It's a unit by unit list of tenants, lease terms, and rental amounts. And the rent roll is probably the go-to document while you're doing your basic due diligence. The next is what we call a trailing 12, right? It's called a T12. So it's a 12-month breakdown of income and expenses. Hey, what's up, Dwayne? Dwayne's driving right now. He always has a lot of good input. All right, so the trailing 12 is a 12-month breakdown of income and expenses. Now it's called a trailing 12 because it's not the previous calendar year. Hey, BizCap, go ahead and go on mute, brother. On TikTok. All right. So the trailing 12 is the trailing 12, right? It's a breakdown of income and expenses from the previous 12 months, not the previous calendar year. Now, sometimes they'll have an operating expense report. So it's a detailed list of ongoing expenses. And then they'll have a CapEx report. So it's past or upcoming big ticket improvements. Good luck getting that from somebody trying to sell their property. All right. Now, those are just the basics. So I'm going to say this. When you are doing the due diligence, this is where experience comes in, because when somebody is selling a multifamily commercial industry, there's a lot of numbers that can be inflated to make it look more attractive than it is. There's numbers that can be inflated to make it look like it's running more efficiently than it actually is. So I don't believe anything that I get from these folks. I don't believe anything. So even when I look at the documents, I'm cross-referencing different documents, and then I'm looking to get some more supporting documents so I can do a financial assessment of this property. So while the rent roll, trailing 12, and operating expenses breakdown are essential, there's several additional documents that can help you make a more informed investment decision. Now, what I will do, Dwayne in the building. Dwayne, is that you dishing out galaxies, brother? I was wondering what I need to start making an entrance like Dwayne, man. Dwayne come in and the whole solar system start popping up on the TikTok. All right, sorry, I get excited and I get distracted easy. All right, so I'm going to give you a list of documents that I request. Now, if you got, I'm just reading this guide. This is a training guide that I did from scratch for our multifamily commercial curriculum. And this is just kind of an overview. If you guys want this, text yes to the number above my head on TikTok. So screenshot it, text yes to that number. You guys that are on Clubhouse, let me go back to Clubhouse here. The number is in the chat. So text the word yes for the number in the chat. Just understand, when I follow up with you, I'm not going to remember what I told you to text yes for. So maybe you can put that in there too. All right. So I'm going to go over all of the documents that I can potentially request. So we got the rent roll, trailing 12, operating expense report, CapEx report. Oh man, I wish I had about 5 more hours. I want to do a multifamily commercial workshop just because it's in my DNA. I get excited about the multifamily commercial stuff because that's what I did for 2 decades, right? All right. So other documents, property management agreements. Most of these properties are, no, don't say yes on TikTok. You got to text it to that number above my head. Otherwise, I just don't. Just, you got to text it. All right. Property management agreements. Some of these properties are already managed. So I'm going to look at the property management agreement to see what I am obligated to and see if I need to fire the property management company. Okay. Now, when you guys are working with property management companies, as I'm sure some of you have, whether it's the residential side or the commercial side, property management companies that are managing properties that are, 75 units and less, I'll tell you this, you're not going to find a property management company that wants your property to perform well as much as you do. Okay. So just understand there may be some training. We have a curriculum called Landlord Launchpad where I teach people how to be landlords, but these are already my students. So if any of them own property, I give them everything they need to know about being a landlord. Everything. It's all good, Trevor. Happens all the time, brother. All right. So what other documents? I want the utility bills. Last 12 months for water, sewer, gas, and electric if the owner's paying for it. Okay. Now, if the owner's not paying for it, then who's paying for it? Well, that means the tenants are paying for it. And if the tenants are paying for it, I don't have to worry about it because it's sub-metered. Real estate tax bill, most recent year. Now, when I look at the real estate tax bill, I don't look at it because I want to know what I'm going to have to pay. I look at it because I want to know what the tax rate is, because I know it's going to get reassessed once I purchase it. So when you guys are plugging in your numbers, real estate taxes, do not use existing because it's going to change once you buy the property. Insurance declaration page. I want that because I'm going to have to get insurance on the property also. And I'll probably go with the existing provider in that area if I don't have one already, because they're already familiar with the building. So I'll get the deck page insurance. The CapEx log, we talked about that. Those are repairs and upgrades over the past 5 years. Good luck. Most mom and pops don't keep that. Maintenance work, work orders, current and historical. So what I'll do is, excuse me. So what I'll do is I'll ask them, what property management software are you using? Then I'll go look at, my partner does not have, but I have before. Amen. So then I'll go look up that property management software, and then I will see what it's capable of. And if it's capable of keeping records, then I'll request a copy of those records. So why do I care about what service requests have been put in? This is where experience comes in. And I always use these same examples. Most of what I've seen is a bunch of small service requests from, come on up, Daniel. Danielle, Daniel, come on up, Daniel. So what I typically see is, you guys know I can't. You guys know I can't multitask worth a damn, huh? Like I got to type one letter, the whole thing shuts down. Okay, so what I'll typically see is I'll see small service requests for things like a drain clogs. Okay, now keep in mind, when I was in the multifamily commercial industry, I was responsible for doing these budgets, and these budgets, the ones that I had to do, totaled about $80 million, right? $80 million in income and expenses. So I had to predict or project the income over the next calendar year, about $55 million in income and about $15 million in expenses in one property, and maybe 10 million in another property and 5 million in another property. My point is, I had to look at every single line item, and I started to look for patterns. And one of the patterns that I always look for is if there are small plumbing service requests and I see enough of them to get my attention, then I've got to dig a little deeper or maybe do another inspection on the plumbing system, because I know certain types of service requests are just curing the symptoms and not the actual problem. So 9 times out of 10, when I see that, I know that there's a mainline replacement issue. So I'll have to have an inspector come and run a camera down through that main line. Reason that's important is because that main line on a 20 unit building, depending on where you live, can cost $25,000 to $35,000 to replace. And if I have to replace that, then that means we've got some negotiating to do on the purchase. All right. So maintenance work orders, current and historical. I want to see what maintenance requests. Occupancy reports for the last 12 months. So why do I want to look at occupancy reports? Because some folks that try to manipulate the documentation don't have a lot of experience on the operation side to be able to effectively do so. So if an occupancy report says that we were 80% occupied last June, and then I look at the trailing 12, which is a list of income and expenses, and I compare that to last June, those numbers need to be in alignment, right? Those numbers need to be in alignment. So I'm going to compare the rental income to how they say we were occupied in that month. And if we were occupied, if it's off, then it's going to raise some more questions, all right? Bank statements, environmental reports. That's something I do on my own. I don't request from them. Sometimes I'll do an appraisal. If there's a lender, it's going to be required. A survey report. So I'll do that whether it's multifamily, commercial, or residential. It's basically a boundary survey. Title report. When you open up escrow, the title company is going to issue a preliminary title report. We call it a preliminary title commitment. Basically, they're going to do all the due diligence on the property and make sure there's no shady stuff going on with the property. Leases, not just the rent roll, but a copy of actual lease agreements. Why do I do that? I want to see what I'm going to be obligated to. Now, so Nicholas says, why would it be off? So it would be off because they're trying to manipulate the numbers to make it look more profitable than it is. So if I go back and look at occupancy at 80%, and then I go back to the trailing 12 and look at the income for that month, and I know what the income can be because I got a rent roll. I know what rents are for every unit. And if that's lower than 80%, I know somebody's lying somewhere, and it's just going to warrant further investigation. All right. Now, back to leases, where would you see the discrepancy though? So remember when we did the unit count? So we had 20 units total, 10 units at, $1,000 a piece, 5 units at 1,300 apiece, 5 units at 1,700 apiece. So it was making $25,000 a month. So if it was 100% occupied, let's say those were the in-place rents. If it was 100% occupied in June of last year, on the trailing 12, I should see under income $25,000, right? But let's say that the truth is, let's say they're telling me it was 100% occupied, but the truth is it was only 50% occupied. Well, I'm expecting to see $25,000 representing 100% occupancy, but maybe I only see $14,000 or $13,000 on the income for that month on another report. So those reports aren't adding up. So which document would show occupancy? It's called an occupancy report, but most companies, mom and pops, they're not going to have that. All right. But if they do have it, that's the reason I asked for it. That's what I'm looking for. Good question. All right. Bank statements, environmental reports. So leases, why do I want copies of the actual leases? And folks, this is where the experience comes in, because I look at the leases. I want to see what I'm obligated to. But again, as a real estate investor, you've got to look at everything. Okay. I'm looking at the leases because let's say this apartment building is master metered. Master metered means one bill comes for utility and you bill back the residents. But if I look at the lease agreements and I don't see that it's being billed back to the residents, that means I'm obligated for all of that. So I've got to sort that out first. And I also have to make sure that we impose occupancy standards on our new leases. Why would I impose occupancy standards? Because if the building is master metered and I do decide to bill back the tenants for that utility, let's say it's water, I'm billing back the tenants based on how many people live there. So 1 bedroom may be one thing, a 2 bedroom may be another, a 3 bedroom may be another. So if I'm billing back for water $50 a month for this 1 bedroom, but they have, what's up, Aunt? But they have 5 people living there, then in that case, that's going to be an issue because you got 5 people taking 5 showers, and it's going to overload our systems. And I'll give you an example. I was overseeing a property, a development, an apartment community, where where we were building back, we were making $25,000 a month in water from bill backs. But this was in a very densely populated area, lower income. There was probably about 12,000 tenants in a development, which could only house really 8,000. And when we got the bill, our water bill was $92,000 a month. So Anthony out
we just
there,
want to stop in and say, let's say what's up.
what's up, man?
Anthony we out here running, man. Just saying what's up to you real quick, bro. I'm on the beach with the nuggets. Look at the other chicken nugget. Hold on.
Is that Carson?
Look. Yeah.
I tell you, but
Look
Anthony,
at Uncle Otis, y'all.
hey, Anthony Glenn be making us look bad as fathers, right? That's why I don't be letting my kids see Anthony in his live and his Instagram, because they're going to start thinking they deserve a better life, and we can't have that.
We just wanted to say what's up, man. What's up to you, brother? I know you cooking. I'm probably gonna hop on after we get done hiking.
Right on, man. I appreciate you. Me and the family will be back down real soon, man. I appreciated your hospitality last time, and we're gonna make sure these kids get outside.
Let's do it.
All right. So
All right.
we were having to pay $92,000 and only able to bill back about $24,000. Okay, so we needed to enforce occupancy standards. The problem is we adopted all these tenants. That's something that can make or break you as a new investor in your first apartment building. Something as simple as that. And that's why I say, look, folks, get the real estate education and get somebody you can call to go over all this stuff with you. Now we're going over all the documents to request. And so I'll do a quick recap. The rent roll, which is a unit by unit list of tenants, lease terms, rental amounts. Trailing 12 is a 12-month breakdown for the previous 12 months of income and expenses. Operating expense report, which is a list of ongoing expenses. A CapEx report, which are the big ticket improvements that are either scheduled or that have been done. The property management agreements, I want to see what obligations are in place with respect to the property being managed. Service contracts. Most of the service contracts I'll keep, but I want to see the trash, landscaping, pest control, HVAC, if there's laundry machines, etc. I want copies of those. Utility bills for the last 12 months. I ask for water, sewer, gas, and electric. The real estate tax bill, so I can see what the tax rate is. The insurance declaration page, so that I can find out who the insurance carrier is. They already know what the building is, and I can usually go there and I can just hand them that deck page to say, hey, I'm going to be the new owner. Set me up. CapEx log, which is repairs and upgrades over the past 5 years. Good luck finding that. Maintenance work orders. I want to look at the work orders so I can see whether they are putting Band-Aids on small problems to avoid having to fix a big one. Can you help people who live in Chicago? Absolutely. So my students live in just about all 50 states, with the exception of Alaska. All right. Even if it's a blue state, I can help you. All right. Environmental reports, appraisal, possibly. It's going to be necessary if there's financing. A survey so I can confirm the boundaries. Title report, closing company will do that. Leases, I want to see copies of all current leases, especially if it's not listed on the rent roll. That's a red flag. I want a moving condition report. That should be in their lease file. I want to see what the condition of the property was when they moved in. I'm gonna come back to that because that's important. Deferred maintenance list. Good luck. They're not going to share that with you. I can go to the city building department to see if there's any code enforcement notices or violations. I can check permits and inspection history. I can do that with the city. There's a bunch of different reports that you can request from these owners. Good luck. You'll probably only get one or two of these. I'm just being real with you guys. So you have to be trained how to move forward despite not having any of these reports. Amen. All right. Now I'm gonna pause for some questions real quick because y'all know me, I'm long-winded. I'll just get to going. I would research what other residential options are in that area. Okay. Can you help people in Chicago? Would you be concerned if there were a mix of short-term and long-term lease agreements? No, not at all. Sometimes you are going to purchase properties that the people are on month to month. So yeah, I have no problem with that. You just have to know how to address every situation. If somebody is on month to month, I'm going to address that situation differently than somebody that's on a long-term lease. For example, month to month, I can put in a requirement for them to sign an actual lease. Now, I'll even let them continue going month to month, but it's got to be on my lease agreement because outside of the rent and the terms, I have occupancy standards and all the rules and community policies in there that I want them to agree to. If they decide they don't want to sign my lease, then I will raise the rent. So you can keep your rent at this rate, or I can charge you a month-to-month premium. It's up to you. And then if they don't want to, then I'll go ahead and evict them. I make my leases fair. I give everybody a chance. If people, even people that can't pay their rent that month, I understand life happens. I've been there before. If they're honest and open about it, I'll give them a pass. I've let people go as long as 8 months without paying me rent. All right. So it's not about being money hungry. It's about protecting your business. And that's what I teach people how to do. All right. Where have your easiest eviction processes taken place? They're all easy because I hire an eviction attorney, but it's all pretty seamless. Most of the time, I don't even have to show up. Let me see. All right. Good questions. All right. Now, this is important. This is probably one of the most important things about investing in multifamily commercial. Now, again, if you guys text the word yes to that number above my head on TikTok or the number in the chat on Clubhouse, then I'll give you this guide that I'm reading from. It's part of our curriculum, right? Now, there's a formula for determining how much your building is worth. It's the net operating income, okay? The net operating income equals the gross income minus operating expenses. That's your NOI, net operating income. Would you recommend a 2-month or a long-term lease? Long-term lease. But I have my, if they want a 2-month, we can do that at a premium. There's a way to manage lease renewals. So in the Landlord Launchpad, that curriculum, there is a lease renewal process that we go through. All right. So net operating income is effective gross income minus operating expenses. So you start with the gross potential rent. The gross potential rent, remember, that is what you would receive in income if the building was 100% occupied at current market rents. Okay. Start with the gross potential rent. And then you subtract estimated vacancy and collection loss. So we'll take out about 5 to 10% for that. Then we subtract property taxes, insurance, utilities if they're paid by the owner, repairs and maintenance, property management fees, administrative costs, and then we probably want to have some reserves for replacement, usually $250 to $300 per unit annually. All right. The result is your net operating income. Now, here's a common mistake when we start talking about assessing these buildings. One of the most common mistakes new investors make is including costs that don't belong in the net operating income calculation. Remember, net operating income only reflects the property's performance before financing and taxes, not your personal expenses, not capital improvements, and definitely not debt service. So items like mortgage payments, income taxes, acquisition fees, or large one-time renovation costs should never be included in operating expenses when calculating NOI. You folks that are my students, you don't have to remember any of this. When the opportunity comes, I will walk you through 100% of the things we are talking about. One of the rules we have for Data Points Academy, no one's out there trying to figure out what to do next, ever. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Now, again, I know a lot of this stuff can sound overwhelming, but I'll give you guys this guide so you can review it. And then if you decide you want to get into multifamily commercial, these are the basics. You got it right in front of you. All right. Now, determining the value. Oh my, this is where it gets cap rates. Okay. Cap rates. Determining the value using the cap rate. I'm going to give you guys the formula. I just gave you how we figure out the net operating income. The value of a building equals the net operating income divided by the cap rate. What is a cap rate? A cap rate is the relationship between a building's net operating income and its market value. So let's assume that a building down the street had a net operating income of $30,000 and it sold for $300,000. Well, it sold for $300,000, so that's the market. That's the market price, right? $30,000 divided by $300,000 is 10%. So that cap rate was 10%. You look at all the transactions in the area and find the average cap rate in the area for that asset class. Then when you're looking at your own property that you're considering, you take the net operating income and divide it by the cap rate in the area, and that's your value. So value equals NOI divided by cap rate. Net operating income divided by cap rate. Cap rates vary by market, asset class, and condition. In hot markets, you might see cap rates of 4 to 5%. In more rural or distressed areas, they might be 7 to 9%. 7 to 9%. I'm not going to get into all that, right? Higher cap rate versus a lower cap rate, because I always get the question, is it better to have a higher cap rate or a lower cap rate? Whether a higher or lower cap rate is better depends on your investment goals and the context of the market. A lower cap rate usually means you're buying in a more competitive, stable, or desirable market, but you're paying more per dollar of income. A higher cap rate typically reflects higher risk, such as in rural areas or distressed properties, but it also means you're getting more income for a lower purchase price. So in short, lower cap rate equals higher price, lower risk, often lower return. Higher cap rate equals lower price, higher risk, potentially higher return. And I'm typically looking at distressed properties because I'm a value add investor. I find a property, make it worth more than I bought it for, and then I exit. All right. So there's your cap rate education, right? The value equals net operating income divided by the cap rate. Now, folks, all this stuff can be manipulated because net operating income can be manipulated. How can net operating income be manipulated? By deferred maintenance or them not reporting all the expenses. So have a coach when you're going through this. I had one of my students had a property that she was considering. I don't remember whether it was 9 or 14 units, but she was relatively new in our program, and I didn't feel right telling her to have any of these conversations on her own with the seller. There's just so much anxiety with that. I just would never do that to somebody. So I told her this. I said, look, go ahead and set up a call with the seller or the seller's agent in this case, and I will go ahead and just position me as your partner. Just say, hey, I'm your partner. I will ask the questions. You just sit there and we can go over it together. Just listen, no pressure. All right. By the time we finish with this phone call, the price was 40% lower than when we started. Right. And this poor representative on the other end, a lot of people are not, you have residential agents getting into multifamily commercial, and they have friends that may own multifamily, so they try to sell it for them. And I just took him to slaughter, right? It wasn't even, I felt bad for the guy. I'm like, I can't send this guy back to his seller with his tail between his legs. So the experience does come into play, folks. All right. All right. Any questions about cap rates and net operating income? Nuclear Ready says, follow me. I want to be your supporter. Well, you already are. And if I can remember, I will follow you right after this. I'm just somebody's dad still trying to figure out these buttons. So if I follow you now, I'll probably shut everything down. All right. Now we're going to get into something extremely boring, debt service. But again, these are things you have to know in the multifamily commercial industry, even if it's just 5 units, folks. And this information applies to whether it's a 5-unit apartment building or a 5,000 unit development. Okay. And I've overseen both. All right. Now, you guys hear about DSCR loans, right? Debt service coverage ratio loans. It's just a mortgage product. It's a mortgage product that qualifies you based on the income the property generates. Does not mean that you still don't need a down payment. Does not mean that they won't look at your credit score. They won't look at your debt. They won't look at your personal financials, but they will look at your credit score, and they will take the rental income to qualify you. Okay. Now, assess what it takes to finance the deal. Most buyers use commercial loans to cover 70 to 80% of the purchase. So some of the key considerations are loan to value. You should understand what loan to value means. The loan amount relative to the value of the property. If you're buying $1 million property and there is an 80% loan to value, that means they will finance 80% of that $1 million, $800,000. Okay. We should know what an interest rate. Current rates for commercial loans vary between 6-8%, could be more, could be less. Amortization, we should know what that means. Amortization means how long do we stretch the payments out for? So most loans are amortized over 25 to 30 years. When you hear the word debt service, that's your monthly mortgage payment. Okay. So next, test for debt service coverage ratio. So I'll just give you this quick example. If your debt service coverage ratio, it always comes in the form of a decimal, is 1.25. That's how you'll see it show up. What they're saying is, let's convert that to a percentage. So 1.25 is 125%. What they are saying is your rental income needs to be at or above 125% of that monthly obligation. So if it costs you $1,000 a month to own that property, in order for you to qualify for a debt service coverage ratio loan in this context, let's multiply 1,000 times 1.25. Well, that's $1,250, $1,250. That's how much rental income you need to be making to qualify. Okay. It's not a shortcut. These have been around for a very long time. The only change over the last 10, 15 years about these DSCR situations is they now apply them to certain mortgage products for 1 to 4 unit, right? But don't get all excited. It's just a type of mortgage. So it's just something that you're going to see in your mortgage or your real estate investing journey. All right. Now we're almost done. Now, again, if you guys text yes to that phone number, I'll just give you this guide so you don't have to try to remember all this stuff. And if you decide that you want to become a real estate investor the right way, learn from someone actually doing it, someone that's going to stay with you until you no longer need us to, then we're your folks. Let's get into cash flow. Cash flow is king. And when I say cash flow is king, sometimes people misinterpret that as if cash flow is the most important aspect of real estate investment, determining whether a real estate investment is good or not. I say cash flow is king with respect to due diligence. Cash flow is not going to lie. Net operating incomes or net operating income can be manipulated. So cap rates can be manipulated. It's hard to manipulate cash flow. Cash flow is basically what does it cost you to own it versus how much money it makes, period. And I have tools that I do my projections on with respect to cash flow, and I teach all my students how to do that. And it's a lot simpler once you've done it a few times than it sounds in this conversation. But I'll give you an example. If your net operating income is $120,000 a year, and your debt payments are $90,000 a year, the cash flow is $30,000 a year. Now calculate your cash on cash return. Okay. Now here's a formula for cash on cash return. The return equals cash flow divided by cash invested. Cash on cash return is cash flow annualized through the year divided by cash invested. So if you put $400,000 of cash into a property and you're earning $30,000 a year, your cash on cash return is 7.5%. Now, this is only the hard cash you put into the property. It's not what you're financing. That's your cash on cash return. Now you have to determine, is that enough for you? Right? So this is where investing becomes personal. It's not always, is it a good investment or is it a bad investment? Sometimes it's, is this investment good enough for you? And let me just pause there, because understanding the operations behind multifamily commercial, in my opinion, is more important than understanding acquisition. Acquisition is easy. It's easy to get an apartment building with no money out of your own pocket, but that doesn't mean it's free. And that doesn't mean it won't send you into bankruptcy because you lack the operational skills to make it profitable. Okay. So while cap rate gives you a theoretical snapshot of a property's value, it doesn't tell you what the deal will actually put in your pocket. That's where cash flow comes in. And that's why a far more accurate reflection of a deal's performance is cash flow. Cap rate ignores your financing terms, but your lender doesn't. Two identical properties with the same net operating income and cap rate can produce wildly different cash flows depending on the financing involved. So I use NOI and cap rates to negotiate my purchase price, but I look at cash flow to see how profitable the asset is actually going to be. And then with that information, I may have to fine tune what I'm offering on this property, either higher or lower. All right. So it answers the question, and this is why serious investors focus on cash return. It answers the question, for every dollar I invest, how much do I get back each year? If you guys are going to start putting deals together for people, you better understand cash on cash return, because the seasoned investor is going to want to know that, right? So this is where the numbers meet personal strategy. A 7.5% return may work for some, others may want 10% or more. The point is, cash flow reflects your actual return, not a market average, and it should always be a part of your final underwriting analysis. All right? Was that dry enough for you guys? Some dry information, right? It's important though. It's like insurance.
That's beautiful information, because it tells you how quickly your money will come back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And especially in an environment where it's not always about good deal, bad deal. Sometimes it's just about a deal. And you got to determine whether or not that deal is good enough for you at that particular time. It may not be. All right. Now, this is me. Look for value add potential. The reason why I like value add, and by the way, folks, value add just means you buy a real estate asset, you make it worth more than you bought it for, and then you exit. All right. So many investors seek value add deals like myself, properties that are underperforming and can be improved to increase NOI and overall value, increase net operating income. What document will show you cash on cash return? I've got some tools that I use. It's based on our projections. There isn't a document that shows you that. You actually have to make the document once you plug in the numbers. So many investors seek value add deals, properties that are underperforming and can be improved to increase net operating income and overall value. The higher the net operating income, the higher the value. So examples are units rented below market, high expenses due to mismanagement, deferred maintenance you can correct, adding amenities or charging for utilities. The goal, increase NOI, raise property value, build equity. You may want to rerun your NOI and valuation after the improvements to pull some money out. All right. Now, the goal is to leave a trail of cash flowing assets in your wake. All right. Flips are great. Flipping homes, flipping apartment buildings, absolutely, outstanding. I am telling you right now, these flips will wear you out. These flips will wear you out. The emotional component to these flips. A lot of things can go wrong. Some things can go right. You're working with a lot of different personalities. You may have vendors that are outstanding on paper, get on the job, and then they're horrible. All types of things. So flipping in perpetuity, that's not building generational wealth. How do you build generational wealth if you keep selling everything? But flipping is necessary. If I need an influx of cash, I'm going to go flip something. If I need to put a group together so we can all get paid, I'm going to go find something and flip something. Most of the time, it's better than leaving money in the bank. All right. But doing that in perpetuity, there's easier ways to make money. But it's a great way to generate cash and put into cash flowing assets, ultimately until you get to the point where apartment buildings is where you land. All right. So look for value add potential. Look for a property you can make worth more than you bought it for. Why do we want to do that? So we can get all of our money back out of the deal and go do it again. All right. Let me see. Can the cash on cash return be manipulated if we want to deceive an educated buyer? Disco, what you plan on doing? Cash on cash return cannot be manipulated if I'm the buyer. I mean, I've had people try to manipulate cash on cash return, but my cash on cash return is based on my projections. So it's up to me to determine what the cash on cash return is, because I'm going to look at what needs to be done, and I should have a full understanding of how much money that I'm going to have to put into the property, and I should be able to project my returns. So that has nothing to do with the seller. That has everything to do with the due diligence of the buyer. And you're right, Disco. People selling businesses, a lot of them are corrupt. There's corrupt people everywhere, right? Corrupt people everywhere.
Not only that, but especially in my experience, when we're talking about multifamily property and getting loans for it, a lot of the due diligence information the seller may provide will give you a skewed view on the income and the net operating income that they receive. They won't include the debt service, as if they anticipate you're going to pay for it in cash and you won't have a debt service, or if they don't want you to know that they're paying down a loan that they have. So, unfortunately, if the net operating income is reported that it's flush and that you're making plenty of money, and then after you consider the debt payments, it eats it all up, it may not look as attractive as it did originally.
Well, yeah, that's something that we as buyers have to figure out, because our credit situation is not going to be the same as the original seller. So I don't take any of the debt service information that the seller is realizing into account. I'm talking to my lenders, and I know what my debt service is going to be. So I look at my future debt service to see if that is a good enough deal for me to move forward. All right. All right. So look for value add. I'm a value add investor. I like to get all my money back out of the deal, use the same money over and over and over, leaving a trail of cash flowing assets in my way. Now, plan my exit strategy. You don't make money when you buy. You make money when you exit. An exit doesn't have to be a sale. An exit can be, oh, what's up? I don't know what that thing was on my head, but somebody put that up there and I know it's a good thing. So I appreciate you, and thank you for sharing my room on TikTok. It means a lot. All right, so I'm going to go over planning an exit strategy, but I'm going to do this. If we can get up to, how many shares we got on TikTok right now? Somebody want to let me know? Mahmoud, I'm going to get to you in 1 second, brother. Somebody want to let me know how many shares we got on TikTok right now? I can't see it. If we get, all right, I can't see it. If we get up to, I don't know. If we double the shares, 33, 35. All right. If we get up to 50 shares, because we got 23 people on TikTok right now. If we get up to 50 shares, I'm going to do the apartment building example that some of you guys have seen before. And it's how we acquire apartment buildings and pay for it out of your exit strategy. Since we're talking about evaluating these multifamily commercial properties.
I think it says 50.
50? Okay. All right. Well, I guess we got there real quick. All right. So it's the 10 unit apartment example. I do this at the workshop, and I do this for some of my students that are in the multifamily commercial situation, right? They're looking for their next multifamily commercial deal. All right. So we'll get into that in just a second. Now, plan an exit strategy and decide early. Will you sell after 3 to 5 years? Are you going to refinance and pull equity out? Are you going to hold it long term? Those are important decisions. Why? Because if I know I'm going to keep something short term, or maybe I'm going to use it for transitional housing, or maybe I'm going to use it for low income housing, whatever I'm going to do, I need to understand what the impact of that decision is going to have on my overall investing portfolio, right? Something as simple as, well, I got to know what I'm going to do with it because that's going to influence the type of materials that I use. I've got properties that I use for transitional housing. I'm not putting $10,000 countertops in a property where the person goes from being homeless to coming in my unit, right? On Section 8. I'm just not, all right? But I'll make it clean and, it's going to be some lower grade materials. All of that stuff comes into play. Just like everything else in real estate investing, the experience and you being seasoned as a real estate investor forces you to look at every single thing and not just the things that are right in front of your face. Okay, so decide early what your exit strategy is going to be. But remember, you don't make money when you buy, you make money when you exit. Exit is not always selling. I'll say it again. Exit can be you replacing the existing financing, that expensive financing, with long-term financing, and then maybe pulling some cash out. That's an exit for me. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna start pulling up I'm gonna get you guys this guide. You'll note on the end of the guide, it talks about 4 Data Points Academy. While we're dope, we have no end date. We have offerings where we can find your first deal. All of our trainings are live. We do have, if you want to do a course on your own, as a study tool, we have that for our students. And there's unlimited support. So most programs disappear once your payment clears. I'm sorry. I get all the horror stories, folks. So we got unlimited support. And that is something that we are very, very proud of. All right. All right. So now let's get into this 10-unit apartment building. I got to pull it up first. Matter of fact, where do I have it? All right, let's see. Y'all bear with me. I'm gonna get it. You gotta have your stuff ready when. All right. Where are we? Here we go. I think. All right. 10-unit example. All right. So we're going to put what we learned into play. Okay. Now this is paying for a building out of your exit strategy. So what I'll do is I'll first go over the details of the actual building. Then I'll go over the documents that we use in this transaction. Then I'm going to we're going to determine the value. I'm going to go over the negotiations, right? I'm going to go over the value add component, right? I'm going to go over rehabbing the unit, so the value add. I'm going to go over stabilizing the property. Then I'm going to go over exit strategy. Okay. Now, I can probably give this one to you guys just so you have the notes. I may or may not. I like all the information I disseminate to be pretty and branded and all that stuff. These are just notes that I have for training purposes. But here it is. 10-unit apartment building. There's 6 units that are occupied, and there's 6 units that are vacant. The units that are occupied get $500 a month. The units that are vacant could be getting $700 a month because that's the current market rent for that unit type. But
I apologize. Did you say 10 unit or 12 unit?
10 units. All
You
right.
said 6 and 6.
I'm sorry, 6 units, 6 and 4. So 6 units are occupied at $500 a month. 4 units are vacant. The 4 vacant units could get $700 a month if they were in better shape. That's going to take about $18,000 a unit to get them in better shape. All right. There's no mortgage on this property. And we're going to assume the cap rate in this area is 6.5%. And expenses for this building are 20%. Now, when you go on YouTube and start talking about estimating expenses, most investors are going to say 35 to 45%. Sometimes I will too. I won't get into that right now, but just know with my background, if I say 20%, it's 20%. In this case, it's 20%. 20% is not always the case. Much larger developments have additional expenses like staffing and a bunch of other things, so the expenses are going to be higher. All right. Now, the documents that we're going to utilize, purchase agreement, note, deed, security instrument, because in order for us to pay out of our exit strategy, we've got to be able to put the debt together on a piece of paper as evidence of that debt. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take that debt and we're going to attach it to the property. Because when you're structuring deals creatively like this, one of the important components is they got to deed the property over to you before you pay for it. Why would they do that when they don't know you from squat? They probably wouldn't. I wouldn't. I'm sure none of you would either. So we're going to take that debt. Ultimately, we're going to attach it to the property. That's going to be their protection. And we're also going to give them an incentive. Okay. Now, this is where it starts. Step one, we got to determine the value by what? Calculating the NOI divided by the cap rate. We say the cap rate is 6.5%. Now let's do the formula. Those 6 units are making $500 a month. That's $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year. We back out 20% for expenses. That leaves us at $28,800. Now all we have to do is the formula to see what the property's worth. $28,800 divided by the cap rate of 6.5%. So that looks like $28,800 divided by 0.065 equals $443,077. Okay. That's not our opinion. That's not because the building next door sold for that much. It is based solely on their financials. Okay. $443,077. So that's what we're going to offer. So now we got to negotiate. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, look. Now, you also have to find somebody that wants to sell. So typically, baby boomers are a really big market right now. They want to go into retirement. They're willing to do something more creative. They don't always want to take the huge capital gains tax or capital gains hit. So they'll get creative with you. So just keep that in the back of your mind. So we're going to negotiate. We know the property is worth $443,077. So here comes Otis. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Hey, look, I want to buy this property from you for what it's worth. I've got some other projects. I got to pull some money from one place to another. So I'm going to need to delay closing 60, probably even 90 days. But for your trouble, how about if I offer another $20,000 on top of what your property is worth? Now, $20,000 may be worth waiting 60 to 90 days. Okay. So now I'm going to put it in offer for $443,077 plus $20,000. Okay. Now, let's talk about that for a second. Now that we put that together, let's assume we've left the closing table already. And when we leave the closing table, I now have the property in my name, and the seller is no longer the seller. The seller is now the lender. And I'm on the clock for having to pay that seller. I'm paying them out of my exit strategy. Okay. Now, let's take those 4 vacant units. Now, those four vacant units, it's going to cost me about $8,000 a unit just to do a little facelift. That's $32,000. I don't have it. I don't have any money, by the way. So I'm going to go to a consumer lending site and see if I can borrow it. Lendingclub.com will give me $40,000 right off the bat. So I'll borrow $40,000. Actually, no, I won't borrow the whole $40,000. I only need $32,000, and I don't have any money to start paying lendingclub.com back, and they're not going to wait 60, 90 days or whatever it takes. So I'm going to take $34,000 from lendingclub.com, and I'm going to use 32 of it to give these apartments a facelift. I can give these apartments a facelift probably in 10 to 14 days. All right. But now I owe lendingclub.com $34,000, and I got to start paying them in 30 days. But I took $2,000 over what I needed so I could start paying them back with their own money. All right. Step 3. Now, I always include a vendor just to show you guys what you can do. So step 3, I'm going to find out who manages the landscaping, ask them how much they charge to do, just a curb appeal stuff, maybe a quick power wash. Let's say they say $2,500. I say, great, I'll give you $5,000 if you allow me to do a net 90, net 120. And after we close and after I exit, I'll keep you on as the vendor. Now, assuming they don't have to buy materials or nothing like that, most of them will agree. But now I'm on the hook for another $5,000. So it's stacking up. I've got The original $443,077 plus the $20,000 incentive that is a lien on the property that I'm going to have to start paying on. And I'll typically negotiate the first payment not being due for 120 days because I'll make the payments so attractive that they can't say no. And it doesn't matter how high I make the payments because I'm going to give them all their money back before I make that first payment anyway. All right. But that high payment entices them to move forward with it. Now we've got the $443,077 to the seller, who is now the lender, the additional $20,000 incentive to them. I got $5,000 I owe the landscaper. I got $34,000 I owe lendingclub.com. I'm paying them back with their own money. So I'm on the hook for $502,077. Okay. Now let's go over what we just learned this past hour and a half or whatever. Okay. Now we can rehab the units. That lendingclub.com money, we can rehab the units. Now that we rehabbed them, I've got them leased. $700 a unit. That's what I'm getting now. So now all we have to do is go over the formula. We were getting $3,000 a month already. Now we're getting an additional $2,800 a month in income. That's $5,800 a month. What's 5,800 times 12? 69,600. What's 69,600? Back out the 20% for expenses. 55,680. We do the same math we did before. Net operating income divided by the cap rate. Now remember, the first time we did this, the property was worth $443,077. But now that we increase the net operating income, we increase the revenue of the building. 55,680 is the current net operating income divided by 6.5% is $856,615. So see what we just did to the value by taking the debt for the property, attaching it to the property, going to an outside source, borrowing money to fix the property up, in turn raising the value. Now all we got to do with this new value, we could sell it. And if we sell it, that $856,000, we owe $502,000 to everybody. We can keep the difference, but we're not in it. We're in it for the long game. We're not trying to. We don't want to do that. We want to keep the building because we're going to continue managing rents up over the years, increasing the value. 2 years from now, we may want to pull money out to do something similar. Okay. So property's now worth $856,000. We're going to do a cash out refinance for 80% of that amount. 80% of $856,615 is what?
That's what you call biz cap, huh?
Yeah. The new mortgage amount is $685,292. I got a mortgage for that. I owe $502,077. The new mortgage that's in place, that $685,292, pays off all the existing debt. I get to keep what's left. Well, what's left? $685,292 minus the $502,077 I owe equals $183,215. Tax-free, and I still own the building. It's not a taxable event. How long does it take you to make $183,000 after taxes? How long does it take you to net that? Well, probably a significant amount of time if you're the average person in this country. All right. Now, I usually leave it right there. Okay, so not only are you paying out of your exit strategy for the building, you made over $180,000, plus you're still reaping the benefits of owning real estate. Okay, now let's stop there, but let's fast forward 2 years later. Same building, and let's do some math. Okay, and I've done this math before, so I can get relatively close. Now there's 10 units. We got those 4 units that were vacant leased at $700 a month, but we're going to be managing rents over time. We're going to be managing rents over the next 2 years. So those original 6 units that were getting $500 a month, maybe the next year we raise them to $600. The year after that, maybe we raise them to $700. And let's say we leave the other ones alone, those 4 units alone. Well, now you've got 10 units getting $700 a month. What's 700 times 10? 7,000. What's 7,000 times 12? 84,000. You back out 20%. You're left with your net operating income divided by the cap rate. Spoiler alert, now the building's worth $1,033,000 and some change. Okay? $1,033,000 and some change. What do we do when we increase the value of the building? We could do another cash out refinance. Now, I've done this math before. So after the second cash out refinance, we walk away with 141,000 in our tax free. That's what we get to keep. Now, the experience comes in with understanding two things. The first thing is understanding where the balance is. Interest rates play a major role. When I do that cash out refinance, is the building generating enough income to service that debt? Well, that conversation is going to be different when you're at 3.5%, 4% interest, and when you're at 7% interest. So that's something that we look at during the process to maintain that balance. I would never let one of my students do this all on their own. We'd have to have these conversations first. The second thing is you got to get somebody that's willing to work with you on this. That means you've got to be well-versed enough to be able to articulate what you're trying to do to somebody that does not have a real estate investing background. All right. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Hey, look, I appreciate you. I appreciate this deal. I think this building's got a lot of potential. It's going to take some capital to improve and get it to where I need. I'll tell you what, I'm moving some things around. Are you okay with delaying closing, 60 to possibly 90 days, or not even closing, our exit, right? I want to be able to put some more money in your pocket. I have a way to put about another $20,000 in your pocket. I'll put it in writing for you. We'll go into contract for it. But it's going to delay it, right? Just going to delay it a little bit. So this is how I talk to people casually. And all I want them to consider is it worth waiting 90 days to get another $20,000 on top of my money? That's all I want them to think about. I don't talk about seller financing, right? I don't talk about security instruments and promissory notes and all that. I leave that to the closing company to explain. And the reason why I leave it to the closing company to explain and get into the details is because the closing company is a third party that has nothing to do with me. They're going to be legit. So they've got the credibility and they can explain how all this works. Me, I'm just like, look, another $20,000 if you delayed payment for 90 days. That's all I want them to think about, right? So I can have the conversation with folks and kind of massage the conversation to make them feel comfortable. If there's any skepticism, sometimes I do go as far as to explain how I'm on the hook. And even if I leave the country and they never hear from me again, there's a mechanism in place for them to go ahead and foreclose on the property and get it back. So I make them feel safe and secure, right? And you have enough of these conversations, you start getting good at it. Now, I don't recommend anybody start here, right? Now let's go to the dark side of this thing. How'd I find them in the first place? See, we can market all day about how to buy apartment buildings with no money out of pocket. How did I find them? Well, I had to do some research. I had to find somebody in a situation that might be inclined to sell based on what their financial objectives are. So maybe I go into PropStream and look at property owners that have owned the property for more than a certain amount of time. Maybe I'll go to the housing authority and see who are your Section 8 landlords and get a list and reach out to them. Folks, I'm a Section 8 landlord too. I guarantee you find enough Section 8 landlords, you're going to find a group of them that don't want to be landlords anymore. Maybe I'll go to the utility shutoff list. If the utilities run by the city under the Freedom of Information Act, I can get a list of who's delinquent. Maybe I'll reach out to them. Maybe I'll go to code enforcement and get a copy of the naughty list and see if I can find a landlord with a headache. You got to have a system in place to be able to reach out to these folks. All right. That takes money. Your marketing, right? Maybe I'm doing postcard campaigns in a particular area. That's marketing. All right. So don't get enamored by, man, I can learn this knowledge and buy an apartment building with no money out of my own pocket. When I'm training somebody, I teach them all the different components to making something like this happen. The mechanics of setting the deal up is the last thing that we go over. Amen. All right. I think I didn't talk myself to death. All right. Let me shut down this. I'm gonna shut down. I'm gonna shut down YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and I'll stay on TikTok and Clubhouse.